Mubarakpur was a powerful government. It was known as the City of Silk in the entire world, including the Indian subcontinent. 700 years ago, when Ibn Battuta set out on his journey around the world, he also reached Mubarakpur, and in his book he called the clothes produced here as the finest quality cloth of the world. The clothes produced by the weavers here were exported all over the world. Due to this textile business of Mubarakpur, it was also called Shiraz of the East. Shiraz is a famous city of today's Iran. The trade of Nil from Mubarakpur was also done with many countries of the world. The Nil prepared here was exported to European countries. When the discussions of the global trade taking place from Mubarakpur reached the residents of other countries of the world, including India, the migration of traders and common people from all over the world, including the Indian subcontinent, started towards this area. In 1881-82, 65 firms were working in Mubarakpur and its surrounding areas, in which about 2,168 artisans were producing clothes like Sangi and Galta, whose annual value was about 3.5 lakh rupees. In those times, an amount of 3.5 lakh rupees was really a huge amount. Roughly, if the 3.5 lakh rupees of that time of the British era is seen in today's time, it can be around billions of rupees. Before 1947, today's Indian subcontinent was controlled by thousands of principalities, Zamindaris and Jagirdaris. These were called native states where the local rulers ruled. Mubarakpur was also one of these governments. Mubarakpur was controlled by the rulers of Arab origin. These Arab rulers were called sheikhs or Sheikh Zamindars. Zamindar was an aristocratic title given to the brave warriors of India by the Mughals. These sheikhs re-established Mubarakpur in 1700 AD, due to which people from all over the world, including the Indian subcontinent, started coming and populating here. Due to which the trade here got further strength and the state also got huge profits. Due to business with all the big royal houses of the Indian subcontinent, including Nepal, these Sheikh Zamindars enjoyed heavy patronage of all the Maharajas and Nawabs. The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur considered themselves far superior to the rest of the world. They acknowledged no power as their equal. That is why in many old records, this region has been described as an isolated landmark of strength and pride. The Zamindars commanded 1,700 muzzle-loaded rifles and an army of 50,000 drawn from distant areas. Had they wished, they could have easily conquered and annexed neighboring enemy states, but they deemed no other land worthy of being added to Mubarakpur. At the same time, no outside invader ever succeeded in subduing them. So great was their authority and grandeur that people coined a famous saying about them: even their urine could light a lamp, a metaphor expressing the unmatched power and nobility of their rule. In 1764, the Battle of Buxar marked the rise of British power, ending Mughal political control after the Treaty of Allahabad. Amid this, confusion arose between the British and the Nawabs of Awadh over Mubarakpur. Each believed it was under the other's authority. In reality, Mubarakpur's Zamindars ruled independently, building a militia of thousands and 1,700 rifles. By the time the British realized it was a free state, it was too late. Any attempt to subdue Mubarakpur risked igniting a major war in North India, as its rulers had always resisted British authority. The power of Mubarakpur's Zamindars rested on their formidable private militia and an arsenal of 1,700 rifles. This army was not ordinary. It drew warriors from many lineages: Afghans, Central Asian Turks, Iranians, Rajputs, and Yadavs. Among them were the warlike peoples, a special martial class comparable to the Spartans of ancient Greece or the Janissaries of the Ottoman Empire. The militia operated under Sardars, appointed by the Zamindars, who could summon troops from distant regions whenever war broke out. In the aftermath of the battles of Plassey 1757 and Buxar 1764, while British power spread across India, Zamindars of Bihar and Purvanchal stopped paying taxes and raised their own private armies. In this turbulent era, Mubarakpur stood out as a stronghold. Many neighboring rulers tried to seize its share of the flourishing international silk trade, but the Zamindari militia, armed with rifles when others still fought with swords, crushed their assaults for nearly 2 centuries. Historian Mohammad Ali Hasan, 1888, called Mubarakpur the chief battlefield of the region, yet no outside force could ever dominate it. Surrounded by massive defensive walls and guarded by gunmen, Mubarakpur earned the title of a walled city, a citadel, an unconquered fortress of Indian subcontinent. After their defeat in the Battle of Buxar, 1764, the Nawabs of Awadh realized that sooner or later, the British would march upon Awadh. Their greatest fear now was the safety of their vast and priceless treasures, which they could not allow to fall into British hands. Amidst this turmoil, the Nawabs learned that the Zamindari of Mubarakpur still remained beyond British reach. They approached the Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur, seeking a safe refuge for their treasures. The Zamindars agreed, as they already shared deep ties with the Persian-origin Shia Nawabs of Lucknow. In fact, owing to this bond, several hundred Shia families sent by the Nawabs had earlier been settled in Mubarakpur under the protection of its Zamindars. Thus, with the help of a renowned Hindu moneylender of Mubarakpur, Rikai Lal Agarwal, the Sheikh Zamindars secretly buried the Nawabs' treasures in a secure location, one that never fell into British hands. Now let us speak a little about the genealogy of the Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur. Who exactly were these people? The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur were in fact descendants of the Ansar companions of Medina, tracing their line from a man known as Sheikh Darab of Medina. But their roots did not begin here alone. Looking further back, their lineage connected with the ancient Sabaean kings who ruled Yemen and parts of East Africa for nearly 1,500 years. That is, from 1200 BC until 275 AD. These were the very rulers of the famous Kingdom of Sheba, also called the Sabaean Kingdom, a dynasty so illustrious that it is mentioned not only in the Bible and the Quran, but also in the Ethiopian Book of Kings, Kebra Nagast, and the Aramaic Targum, Sheni. You may be surprised to learn that Mubarakpur is interlaced with hundreds of small and large tunnels, a vast underground network built more than 200 years ago. These solidly constructed tunnels were designed to withstand the constant external invasions faced by the region for centuries, and to secretly carry messages from one place to another. Through these secret passages, the Zamindari militia forces of Mubarakpur would surround invading armies of kings and princes, forcing them to retreat. In 1813, a tragic incident shook the entire region, an event remembered in history as the Great Disturbance. That year, Mubarakpur burned for 9 days and 9 nights in a blood-soaked conflict. According to the writings of Qazi Athar Mubarakpuri, this bloodshed claimed the lives of 325 people. When the British sent combined forces from the police stations of Sagri and Muhammadabad to quell the violence, historian Gyanendra Pandey records in his book Construction of Communalism in Colonial North India that the officers halted several kilometers away from Mubarakpur after witnessing an overwhelming sight. One officer from Sagri police station described it as a river of human chain. A flood of nearly 90,000 people gathered in and around Mubarakpur. The battle was fought between the Zamindars of Mubarakpur and invading outside groups, and it caused heavy financial losses. Qazi Athar Mubarakpuri notes that damages amounted to 5 million rupees. The inhabitants of the Mubarakpur Zamindari, including traders, weavers, farmers, and tenants, paid lagan, rent, and additional feudal dues to the Zamindars. As noted in the District Magistrate's 1837 report, each loom was charged a small kurga loom fee, essentially a rent or permission tax, which, though minimal and never increased, remained an important source of income for the Zamindars. 19th century records show that weavers bore various duties. Before the British annexation of Awadh in 1856, poorer sections of the weaving community practiced cotton weaving under the Zamindars' patronage. This professional relationship allowed the Zamindars to control production while ensuring steady employment for the weaker classes. The Wajibul Ars, 1860, confirms that tenants in Azamgarh were obliged to pay taxes, with Mubarakpur's weavers contributing 3 pays per loom tax, and acknowledging the Zamindar as their feudal superior. In return, the Zamindars protected all communities in the estate from invaders, bandits, and external threats. This reciprocal system of taxes, duties, and protection forged a strong bond of interdependence across Mubarakpur society. In 1832, an incident in Mubarakpur changed the history of present-day Azamgarh. A wealthy Hindu merchant was attacked by bandits. Hearing the cries from his house, locals gathered, and soon the Zamindari militia, led by a young commander named Comrade Faith, arrived. Historian Muhammad Ali Hasan notes that such a large crowd surrounded the merchant's house that there was barely room to stand. A fierce battle broke out between the militia and the bandits. After hours of fighting, most of the bandits were killed, and only one survived. He revealed that among the slain were the notorious outlaws Bagi Singh and Chattar Singh, long wanted even by the British for looting imperial treasuries. Until then, no force had dared to confront them directly. This event was so significant that the British, who had annexed Azamgarh to Gorakhpur in 1801, were compelled in 1832 to recognize Azamgarh as a separate district. Mubarakpur itself, however, remained outside their control. By that time, the Zamindari had raised a militia of thousands and stockpiled 1,700 rifles, more than any Indian ruler or even the British-controlled artillery in the region, which numbered only 900 guns. Because of this vast arsenal and disciplined militia, Mubarakpur emerged as a strategically important and militarily independent force, one of the rarest cases in colonial India. Like the Great Disturbance of 1813, Mubarakpur again witnessed violent unrest in 1844, marked by heavy casualties and widespread arson. Historians note that Mubarakpur had a unique system of rapid mobilization, similar to the Scandinavian and the Highlands of Scotland Thing gatherings. A swift messenger would carry a mysterious written note, summoning people to assemble at a specific place and time. Because of this practice, in the 1842 incident, thousands gathered within just 15 minutes. During the mid-19th century, a woman named Mariam emerged as a local leader in Mubarakpur. Unusually influential for her time, she could rally hundreds with a single call, often invoking the honor of the Sheikh Zamindars, whose support she enjoyed. Mariam belonged to the butcher community of the Pura Diwan quarter. In 1850, when bandits once again attacked a wealthy Hindu merchant's house, the militia and townsfolk, better prepared this time, counterattacked, forcing the bandits to flee and pursuing them for miles. By then, the Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur had forged strong alliances with the Nawabs of Awadh, the Raja of Banaras, and the Bangash Pathans of Farrukhabad. The Sheikh Zamindars also maintained ties with the Shah dynasty of Nepal. In 1857, bandits once again threatened to loot Mubarakpur's merchants. A few kilometers from Mubarakpur lived a Muslim Zamindar who commanded a band of some 4,000 outlaws. One day, he sent a letter warning Sheikh Ghada Hussain, a Mubarakpur Zamindar, and Baksh Metar, leader of the weavers, that he intended to plunder the town's merchants. This was a grave provocation. The people of Mubarakpur were furious. They answered the bandit leader with a blunt challenge. "How dare you threaten our noble Zamindars and their allies?" They warned that if he or his gang came to plunder Mubarakpur, they would pay the price. The Mubarakpur leaders went further. They told him that if he repeated such a threat, he should prepare to defend his own lands, because the next meeting between them would be on the battlefield, and they would see who was truly more powerful. The bandit chief then sent another message, apparently a ploy, saying he intended to visit the shrine of Panjeh Sharif and the tomb of Raja Mubarak Shah, unarmed and accompanied by only 4 or 5 men. Mubarakpur replied that if he came unarmed, he was welcome to perform his religious rites and then leave in peace. But if he came with more men or with weapons, they would treat him like a sweet that is divided and eaten. In other words, they would utterly destroy him. They reminded him that their arsenal was ready, 1,700 guns and 9 mons of gunpowder and ammunition. After this exchange of letters, there was no further response from the bandits. In 1857, the call for India's first war of independence spread across the land. A proclamation was issued in the name of Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar by his grandson, Feroz Shah Bahadur Dehlavi, known as the Azamgarh Proclamation. This appeal urged different classes of Indian society to rise against the British. Zamindars were reminded that the British had stripped them of their ancestral estates and honor and were called to reclaim their lands with the sword. Soldiers and officers were told that their pay, dignity, and positions had been taken away and urged to sharpen their swords and break free. Ulema were reminded how religious institutions had been closed and Islamic law interfered with, and were called to defend their faith. Hindu priests were asked to remember the insults to their temples and festivals and to rise in defense of dharma and culture. Peasants and laborers were told that their lands had been seized and their toil exploited, and urged to fight for their rights. Traders and merchants were asked to recall how the East India Company had ruined their trade and industries, and to resist in order to save their livelihoods. The document was called the Azamgarh Proclamation because on the 25th of August 1857, Azamgarh was free from British control, serving as a symbolic and strategic center for the rebellion. Azamgarh remained independent on 3 occasions, altogether for 81 days, even after the fall of Delhi on the 20th of September 1857. Eventually, the British, reinforced by Nepal's Gorkha Regiment, retook Azamgarh after fierce battles. Surviving rebels retreated towards the Nepal's Tarai region. The British then unleashed brutal reprisals. Villages that had aided the rebels were burned and inhabitants massacred. Only Mubarakpur Zamindari remained untouched. Its Sheikh Zamindars had stationed their armed militia, equipped with 1,700 guns, along the borders, warning that any intrusion would be met with fire. Knowing this would open a new front of war, the British avoided Mubarakpur. Historian Gyanendra Pandey notes a similar case in Sagar, Madhya Pradesh, where locals defended their land likewise. Still, even the British magistrate of Azamgarh, Mr. Horne, admitted in his report of 1857 that Mubarakpur had almost no crime. Its roads were secure, and credited its zamindars and leaders for this order. Between 1861 and 1865, during the American Civil War, Mubarakpur's textile industry once again flourished. The main reason was the halt in cotton supply from the United States. At that time, Britain relied heavily on the southern United States for cotton, but the war disrupted exports, creating what became known as the cotton famine. As a result, British textile mills turned to other sources such as Brazil, India, and Egypt. Places like Mubarakpur, Mao, and Kopaganj, major weaving centers, exported cloth to Britain, which greatly increased local incomes. Mubarakpur's Sangi, Galata, and other hand-woven fabrics saw especially high demand. Historically, Mubarakpur's Sheikh Zamindars had earlier lived in Dariabad, where some remains of their estates still exist. Later, due to certain reasons, they left that settlement and founded 2 new localities within their Zamindari, Amilo and Chakia. These were established by 2 brothers, Sheikh Ahmad and Shah Garib. The last major battle of the Zamindars of Mubarakpur was against the Cow Protection Forces, the Gorakshani forces, of North India. Between 1888 and 1917, a massive movement known as the Gorakshani movement spread from Punjab to eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Bengal. Though it appeared to be a peasant mass movement, its primary goal was to ban cattle sacrifice. Behind it, however, stood powerful feudal lords, zamindars, and nobles who funded and armed the movement. Many of them, having lost power and popularity by the late 19th century, saw it as an opportunity to regain influence and expand dominance into new areas. These forces devastated hundreds of villages and towns across Bihar and Purvanchal, sometimes mobilizing crowds of up to 200,000 people. By 1893, during Eid ul-Adha, the movement reached Azamgarh, enforcing a ban on animal sacrifice. Disturbances broke out in Mao, Sagri, Jahannaganj, and Nizamabad, where people were even forced to sign pledges not to sacrifice animals under threat of violence. Amidst this turmoil, the Mubarakpur Zamindari remained stable and orderly, continuing its daily administration. But in 1893, a turning point came. A butcher from Mubarakpur, who had traveled to Azamgarh city on business, was harassed by Gau Rakshani activists. When news reached Mubarakpur, the people were furious. The Sheikh Zamindars immediately ordered their militia forces onto high alert. Later that year, a large contingent of cow protection forces marched toward Mubarakpur to challenge it directly. But when they learned that the Mubarakpur militia was already fortified with heavy arms and gunpowder, they turned back before reaching the town. The Zamindars, however, were not satisfied with this retreat. They vowed that such an insult to Mubarakpur's supremacy could not go unanswered. The Gau Rakshani leaders also realized they could not defeat Mubarakpur by themselves. Thus, over the following years, they sought alliances with Mubarakpur's rival Daris and estates, incorporating them into the movement and trying to establish stronger roots in the surrounding region. The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur carefully observed all these activities in silence, waiting for the right moment. Finally, on the 29th of May 1904, 11 years after the first confrontation, the opportunity came. A massive clash erupted between the Mubarakpur Zamindari militia and the Gau Rakshani forces. Before battle, war drums were beaten in Mubarakpur's main square, signaling a declaration of war. Thousands gathered, and on the northern front of Mubarakpur, a fierce battle broke out. Within hours, the Gorakshani forces were decisively defeated with heavy casualties. After the victory, the Mubarakpur militia burned an 8-kilometer stretch of the 15-kilometers road from Mubarakpur to Azamgarh city, ensuring no reinforcements could easily reach from Azamgarh. It was also a warning to local Rajas and Zamindars that challenging Mubarakpur's supremacy would bring dire consequences. The British Empire, meanwhile, observed silently from the background. Since the 1857 uprising, the British strategy had been to keep India's communities divided through constant religious strife. British officials even attended some Gorakshani meetings. By 1917, however, the movement finally collapsed. 2 detailed books were later written on the rise and fall of the Gorakshani Andolan, documenting the many towns and villages destroyed in its wake. In 1906, cholera struck the United Provinces, modern-day Uttar Pradesh, killing 149,549 peoples. In Mubarakpur, Azamgarh, 265 people died. Earlier, in the late 19th century, Mubarakpur had also suffered heavily from the plague epidemic. During those years, a man named Abdul Majid, who lived in the Pura Sofi locality of Mubarakpur, used to record daily events in his diary. In it, he wrote about the death of Horatio Herbert Kitchener, Lord Kitchener, expressing sorrow and noting that even the emperor mourned his loss. Abdul Majid further recorded that 4 days of mourning were observed in Mubarakpur, with charity distributed in Kitchener's name. Lord Kitchener had died on the 5th of June 1916 when the ship HMS Hampshire sank. The question arises, why would a man in Mubarakpur grieve his death? Historical records suggest that Abdul Majid was a police informer and loyalist of the British Empire, secretly reporting local anti-British activities to officials. Hence, his sorrow reflected his loyalty, not popular sentiment. By contrast, the Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur, who had ruled for centuries, never bowed to the British. Evidence of this comes from 1857, when Azamgarh's magistrate, Mr. Horne, reported that crime was almost non-existent in Mubarakpur and its roads were remarkably safe, crediting the Zamindars and their chiefs. The historian Mohammad Ali Hasan later wrote that another officer, Mr. Pennywell, remarked that the Mubarakpur Zamindars deserved to be rewarded with medals and titles for such achievements, though whether they would have accepted such honors is another matter. The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur were counted among the most educated and intelligent men of their time. They held the status of a holy figure in the eyes of all sections of society. The Zamindars played a central role in the social and religious life of Mubarakpur. No new initiative, idea, or reform could take place without their approval. Their importance was immense. They were not only regarded as powerful leaders, but also as social and religious guides. The local people addressed them respectfully with the title Mian. Within the Mubarakpur Zamindari state, a unique regulation known as Article 20 was in practice. Under this regulation, any new construction or building activity within the Zamindari estate could only be undertaken with the permission of the Zamindar. By the 19th century, Mubarakpur also had services like a post office and telegraph, which connected it to major nearby cities. These services were used for the Zamindar's administration, business activities, and rapid exchange of information related to security. The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur were members of a community known as the Rautara. This group included many distinguished lineages: Arabs, Turks, Afghani Pathans, Iranians, Turco-Mongols, as well as those Brahmin and Rajput landlords who, at some point in history, had voluntarily embraced Islam. All of them were collectively called Rautara, and because of their shared culture and traditions, marriages and social ties largely remained within this community. But here arises an important question. Despite Mubarakpur's magnificent past, why has the world remained unaware of its history until now? There were several reasons. Firstly, the Zamindars of Mubarakpur always stayed outside the influence of the British. They never relied on colonial patronage, instead maintaining their own power and independence. Secondly, their Semitic ancestry played a role. They belonged to some of the most ancient peoples of the world, nations whose voices once dominated history and whose civilizations shaped Asia. For these reasons, the history of the Sheikh rulers of Mubarakpur was deliberately kept hidden and never brought to the world stage. It was only in the 1980s that historian Gyanendra Pandey uncovered this forgotten past. Visiting Mubarakpur, he studied the Persian works written between 1880 and 1888 by Sheikh Mohammad Ali Hasan, translated them into English, and published them in the form of books. His research gave the world its first glimpse into this concealed legacy. More recently, in May 2024, a student from Bard College in the United States, Heston Tucker, produced a 95-page research thesis. In it, he wrote that since the Mughal era, Azamgarh had been firmly under the control of the Sheikh Zamindars. While many other groups also held estates in the district, Tucker emphasized that the Sheikhs were uniquely powerful. So powerful that during the Mughal period, they rose to a position of royal status, recognized for their authority and influence. The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur deliberately distanced themselves from politics and political organizations, believing such matters to be beneath their dignity. A similar example can be seen in King Brajaraj Kshatriya Chamupada Singh Mahapatra of Tigriya state, who refused to contest elections when invited by a political party, declaring that it was unworthy of a king to beg from door to door for votes. Instead, the Zamindars of Mubarakpur focused their energy on higher education and intellectual pursuits. Over generations, they produced a large number of engineers and doctors who went on to serve across the globe and even reached prominent positions in institutions such as the United Nations and the World Bank. Among their direct descendants was Muhammad Shoaib, who served twice as the finance minister of Pakistan. The Sheikh Zamindars of Mubarakpur thus stand among those ancient lineages who were once part of the world's first documented civilization, the ancient Mesopotamia.